Well, hey there, friendos and friendettes. If you're like me, you are probably just loving this new Apex Legends game. But if you're also like me, you probably want to stop having games that go like this. No! Come on. No! God! Guys, he's right in front of me. He's right. Jesus! Please. No! Oh my god, he's the last guy. Oh my god, I could do this. He's in the zone. Oh, yes! Yeah! God! I'm done. And you want to start having games that go like this. Oh yeah. Oh, here we go now. Come on over here, boy. Get over here. Oh! Yeah. Oh, didn't I tell you to sit down? Sit down! Oh, I know where they are. They're right here. Suck it. Oh, and suck it. And... oh, here we go. Stuck it! Woo! Oh my god. Yeah!
Oh, nice, dude. Good game, man.
And that's why I'm gonna teach you guys how to play the Bangalore.
No cluster foxtrots in my unit. Let's run this.
Now, as I start off this guide, I just want to get a couple of things out of the way and hopefully not waste too much of your time. First of all, this is a character-specific guide, so a lot of generic tips about like movement and how to position yourself or like circle things aren't things that I'm going to really cover in this guide. Second, I want to say that I'm by no means a professional player or really like an elite, top 5% gamer, so just take my advice for what it is. And last, this guide's mostly going to be pretty subjective, since everyone who plays this game is at kind of a different skill level or experience or background or what have you. However, I do want to give you guys my personal opinions on what I think are the best ways to play the Bangalore, and my thoughts as to why I think she's probably the best legend to play out of all of them. Nah, I'm just kidding. They're all good. She's just my favorite. Now, going to this video, you might not agree with me on the things I've said or other parts of my video, but that's okay. There's no one way to play Apex Legends, and I'm here to give you just one option out of many. With time and effort, you'll improve, I'm sure, just like anybody would, and you'll learn to make fewer mistakes. But hopefully, I can help accelerate that process. Alright, let's get started and break down each of the Bangalore's abilities. The Bangalore's first ability is...
Stop! Hammer time!
Wait a minute, that's not right. What's that say? It's... oh!
Stop!
Double timing it.
The Bangalore's first ability is Double Time. This ability gives you a short burst of move speed whenever you're shot at while sprinting. This ability is insane. You don't even actually have to take damage for the effect to work. Bullets just have to go in your general direction. This effect can also happen when you're behind walls, if the projectile is close enough to you. As long as you're sprinting, this effect is going to trigger, and it has no cooldown. Let me repeat that. It has no cooldown. Essentially, the ability makes you go... As far as I can tell, this ability also triggers on punches, grenades, and even ultimates that cause damage. And I've also heard that you can even self-trigger this effect if you throw a grenade close enough to yourself. Although I really fail to see the practical use of this in a firefight. Now, how should you go about using this ability? Well, as I see it, there are three main ways that you can use Double Time. The first and best way to use this ability, in my opinion, is to close the distance on your enemy and get better positioning. I classify the Bangalore as one of the three main assault characters in Apex, but more on that on a different video. And this passive, combined with her basic ability, gives her access to one of the best ways to advance on your target. In Apex, engagements are usually going to be dictated by which team has the better movement, so being able to constantly move faster than your opponent will not only make you harder to hit, but give you the advantage by being able to surprise your enemy as you swiftly move across the battlefield. Now, the second way to use the Bangalore's passive would be to reactively reposition during a fight. This is generally going to be when you're trying to find cover to heal or take a different angle that's more advantageous to your current situation. This might be harder to reliably activate depending on the situation, but just remember that this ability is only going to trigger if you're sprinting. It's not going to help you if you're aiming down sights at an enemy or if you're running backwards. Anytime you see this little icon come up on your screen, just try and do your best to take advantage of the momentary benefits. If you don't take advantage of your movement, you might end up finding yourself back at the load screen. Finally, the third and least useful way to use this ability would be in order to just retreat completely from a fight. Chances are, as you run, you're going to be chased and shot at, so your passive will trigger easy enough, but you end up just limiting your options to simply running away. And I wouldn't really recommend trying to actively play around this option, but if you do have to run, this is going to be something that'll inherently happen anyway, so at least you still benefit from it. The Bangalore's basic ability is her signature smoke launcher. This is what really makes the character a complete beast at controlling the battlefield. This ability is on a 33-second cooldown, which might sound long, but you get to carry 2 charges of the smoke at a time. Also, each charge has its own independent cooldown, so you'll almost never find yourself without a smoke when you need it.
Is the weed on the show real?
When you use this ability, your launcher can fire a canister of smoke up to quite a considerable distance away, and when it lands, it splits into 3 smaller canisters that then spread out the smoke after a short delay. Once the smoke canisters explode, the smoke itself lingers on the ground for about 20 to 23 seconds before it's actually completely dissipated. So there's only about 10 seconds of downtime between each cooldown. But when you factor in the initial travel time of the shot, that pretty much means that the Bangalore can always cover something with smoke as long as she's not spamming the ability. When it comes to using this ability, I follow only one personal rule. Always smoke your enemies. Never yourself.
I'm gonna go up on him.
I see a lot of people try and use this ability on themselves as a kind of like, oh crap maneuver, but there's like 2 main reasons I want to push you away from this kind of habit. Now, the first is kind of hard to explain, but I'll try and do my best. The reason why you always smoke your enemies is because it gives you better awareness and better options than your opponent does. What I mean by this is, imagine a very simple scenario where you're squaring off against another team. You have the option between smoking yourself or your enemies. If you smoke yourself, your enemies can't see you, but also you can't see where your enemies are or where they move to, and your enemies at least have a vague understanding of where you are. And if you smoke your enemies, they can't see you, but now you have the vague understanding of where they are. Now, essentially what this does is it forces your opponent's hand. They have, one of 2 decisions to make. They can either stay in the smoke and get possibly pelted by grenades by your team, or they can choose to come out and not have any idea of where you could have gone. And you get the option of watching the smoke the entire time, or if you really need to, you can watch where they come out of and throw another smoke down on them as you try and make your retreat. But the point is that while they're smoked, you get the advantage of getting to move anywhere. Plus, I kind of think that the game developers knew that this was the better option, and they added this little perk to the smoke launcher, the perk being that it does damage to all enemies that are hit by the smoke canisters. Now, it's not much, but I think it's in the game to teach players to always smoke your enemies, like I say. Now, there's only 2 exceptions that I make for this rule, and the first is if your allies are downed. Smoking them can be one of the safest ways to revive them, especially if there isn't immediate hard cover near them. when you're downed, you don't really have the same movement options, so smoking a friend can really help them out. And the other reason I would choose to smoke myself instead of my enemies is if I have the option of multiple exits available to myself, where I can keep my enemies guessing as to where I could have been. See, the smoke to me is all about repositioning. And as a final little note for the smoke launcher, I feel that combined with her first ability, this makes the Bangalore one of the best shotgun users in the game. Being able to run at your enemies at an increased move speed while they're disoriented and you know where they are in the smoke, essentially. And, just being able to fly all around and hip fire, the Peacekeeper or the Eva 8 like a maniac, it makes her a prime candidate for just getting right up in the face of your enemies.
I think there's another one.
Oh, and I almost forgot. Conversely, on the other end of the spectrum, the Bangalore is also one of the best characters to pick in order to prevent shotgun users from having the upper hand on you. As you'll see in this clip right here, I'm forcing this Bloodhound who has a Peacekeeper to come out into the open to fight me, but I'm not getting anywhere near my smoke. I'm letting him push towards me and fight on my terms, since I have the range advantage. The Bangalore's third and final ability is her ultimate, Rolling Thunder. When activated, the Bangalore will pull out a small flare, which she can then throw a moderate distance to call down a massive area of effect airstrike. This airstrike litters the ground with about 20 missiles, which, after a delay, explode, creeping from one side of the AoE to the other and then back again. When these missiles explode, whoever's caught in the blast radius will take a moderate amount of damage, have their vision slightly obscured, and take a massive slow for a short duration. This includes yourself and your teammates if you happen to walk into your own ult. Now, when it comes to this ability, in action it's probably the least flashy part about the Bangalore's kit. But when it comes to synergy, this works incredibly well with the rest of her kit to ensure that the battle flow is on the Bangalore's terms. The way I like to use this ability is generally to start off a fight. I like to throw it out before enemies even know that my team is near. This ability doesn't do the craziest amount of damage, but still, when the missiles come down, people don't want to be inside of the blast, so they'll either run for cover or stay confined within the buildings that they're in, while your team positions themselves properly. Less coordinated teams may be caught off guard by this and split themselves due to how large the AoE is. And simply because you call down the AoE doesn't actually reveal your position other than you're near. Another use of this ability can be to cover your team's escape by either throwing it directly into your team or just slightly ahead of where you're going to retreat to. This is going to ensure that whoever follows you has to take damage and a slow if they want to pursue you. Otherwise, I just like to throw this down in a fight if there's a peek and plink battle going on. It's generally going to force your opponents to move from their cover of choice to some sort of less desirable position and, mix things up a little bit. Honestly, just use your best judgment when using this ability, and you probably can't go wrong. Well, guys, that's it. I think this is going to conclude my very first guide for Apex Legends. I tried to be as in-depth as I could be, but more than likely I've probably missed something here or there, and I'll be corrected in the comments, but that's okay. I just hope that you guys learned something, and if not, that's okay too. Hopefully this gave you just a little insight on one way to play the Bangalore. You might disagree with me, but that's quite alright. This guide took me quite a lot longer than what I originally expected, but we got through it, and if you're still here, thank you very much. I hope to see you guys around in the next one, alright? Much love.